My name is Tula. I'm 29 years old now, but I was 18 when my life split clean in half. There is a version of me that exists before that night, and another that exists after it. The girl before believed that no matter how loud an argument got, no matter how disappointed a parent looked, love was permanent. The woman after understands that love can be withdrawn like a privilege, revoked with a sentence spoken in a steady voice. That night didn't begin like a disaster. It began like tension, like the kind of heavy air that settles over a house before a storm. My dad stood near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes colder than I had ever seen them. He didn't shout. He didn't rage. He just looked at me as if I were something unfamiliar, something disappointing he had discovered by mistake. And then he said it. At 18, my dad told me I should leave because I wasn't worth the trouble anymore. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own breath. I kept waiting for him to soften, to say he was angry and didn't mean it, to give me something to fight against. But there was nothing, just finality. My sister stood slightly behind him, close enough to look supportive, far enough to look innocent. Her face was arranged carefully, almost delicately, into an expression of sadness mixed with reluctant agreement. If you didn't know her, you would think she was heartbroken. I knew her, or at least I thought I did. For weeks before that night, small things had been disappearing. Money from Dad's wallet, a bracelet from her dresser, whispers about how I'd been acting distant, strange, secretive. I denied everything because there was nothing to confess. But denial only made me look defensive. Guilty people deny, Dad said. And every time my sister's eyes filled with tears at just the right moment, every time her voice trembled in just the right way, the picture grew clearer in his mind. A careless daughter, a rebellious phase, a thief. That night he accused me again, and I tried to defend myself. I told him I loved him. I told him I would never steal. I told him I didn't understand why he wouldn't believe me. But my words felt small compared to the mountain of suspicion already built. Then came the ultimatum. Leave. No discussion. No pause. No second chance. I walked to my room in a daze, as if I were watching someone else pack up their life. My hands shook while I pulled clothes from drawers. My throat burned from holding back tears. I refused to cry where anyone could see. If I cried, it would look like guilt. If I showed emotion, it would look like manipulation. So I swallowed it all. The cruelest moment wasn't even Dad's sentence. It was when my sister stepped into my room before I had finished packing. She didn't wait for me to go. She began shifting things, measuring space with her eyes, mentally rearranging furniture as if my existence had already been deleted. I stood in the doorway holding a half-zipped duffel bag and watched her claim the room I had grown up in. That was when something inside me snapped quietly. I wasn't just being thrown out. I was being replaced. I left that house with 2 bags and nowhere to go. Pride kept me from calling friends. Shame kept me from explaining what happened. I slept in my car for 3 nights. The seats were stiff, the air heavy, the silence unbearable. I parked in dim corners, afraid of being noticed, afraid someone would see me and recognize the girl who had been cast out. Every passing headlight made my stomach tighten. Every distant sound felt threatening. I cried into my jacket so no one would hear. I replayed Dad's words again and again. Not worth the trouble anymore. It wasn't just rejection. It was erasure. By the 3rd night, the shock faded into something colder. Survival. I found a cheap room to rent. Then a job. Then another job when the first one didn't pay enough. Days turned into months. Months into years. I built my life from the ground up with a kind of desperation that scared even me. I hardened. I learned how to smile without meaning it. How to nod when people misunderstood me. How to carry betrayal quietly. But the truth followed me everywhere. I knew my sister had framed me. I just couldn't prove it. And Dad never called. Not once. He didn't check if I was safe. Didn't ask if I needed help. His silence confirmed what his words had declared. I wasn't worth the trouble. I studied at night. I worked during the day. I failed. I stood back up. I kept moving because stopping meant feeling, and feeling meant collapsing. There were mornings I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, older than she should have. But she looked strong in a way the 18-year-old girl never had. 12 years passed like that. 12 years of building a life without a safety net. 12 years of teaching myself that family could be chosen, that trust had to be earned, that survival was a skill. And then one ordinary evening, while I was sitting on my couch scrolling through messages, his name appeared on my screen. Dad! For a second, I thought it was a mistake. Spam. A glitch. But it wasn't. My hands began to tremble the same way they had the night I packed my bags. My chest tightened. The message was simple. He said he had been searching for me for years. He didn't know if he had the right to reach out. He just wanted to know if I was okay. Okay. The word felt almost insulting. Was I okay when I slept in my car? Was I okay when I worked 2 jobs and ate once a day to save money? Was I okay when I questioned my own worth because my father decided I wasn't worth defending? My mind flooded with memories. The kitchen, the accusation, my sister's carefully timed tears, the coldness in his voice. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to let him sit with the silence he gave me. But another part of me, the daughter part I could never completely silence, wanted answers, wanted acknowledgement, wanted to know if he ever questioned what happened. I started typing and deleting. Typing and deleting. How do you compress 12 years of pain into a few lines? Eventually, the words came not from rage, but from exhaustion. I told him everything. I told him how his words followed me into every job interview, every relationship, every moment of doubt. I told him I never stole anything. I told him I slept in my car for 3 nights, terrified and alone. I told him I believed my sister had framed me, that I had always believed it. And then I asked a question that had lived inside me for over a decade. Why didn't you ever ask me what really happened? After I hit send, I felt strangely calm. The truth was no longer trapped inside my chest. Hours passed. Then my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I answered. His voice was not the voice I remembered. It was softer, fragile. He told me he had read my message over and over, that he couldn't stop picturing me alone in that car. He said he thought he was being responsible back then, that he believed he was making a hard but necessary decision. But inconsistencies had started appearing in my sister's stories over the years, small contradictions. And eventually, during an argument, she admitted she had lied about several incidents out of jealousy. By the time the truth came out, I was gone. The damage was done. He said he tried to find me but didn't know how to face me. He said after reading my message, he sat in his truck and cried for an hour. A grown man sitting alone with the weight of what he had done. I listened. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt the heaviness of lost time. 12 years can't be returned. Childhood can't be restored. Trust doesn't reappear just because the truth finally does. We talked for a long time. There were pauses. There were tears. There were moments of silence where neither of us knew what to say. Nothing magically healed. But something shifted. The lie that destroyed my place in that house no longer defined me. I don't know what our relationship will look like in the future. I don't know if forgiveness will ever feel complete. But I know this. Being believed after years of silence is powerful. Hearing him say, I was wrong, loosened something I didn't realize I was still carrying. A single lie can fracture a life. But a single truth, spoken late and trembling, can still echo loudly enough to change the ending. And sometimes that is enough to begin again.